Yes, I've been gone for a while. Oopsies, no worries though, because today I have 3 final stages for the Sinnoh, Unova and Kalos regions. Enjoy. For the final stages of Sinnoh, we have Torterra, who has grown into a fully fledged out walking habitat with a big tree on his back and some spikes resembling mountains. We have Infernape, who has moved a lot closer into the sun god Wukong look by adding some details like the swirls on his shoulders and knees. We then have Empoleon, who is now a proper Napoleon penguin with a big trident covering his facial area. I guess we just have to make sure our design adds some elements who do make it look more like a reference to Gorgon. I have to admit that the second stage of this line is kinda bad. This meant that I had to make sure that this design carries the entire line. We started out by making some simple shapes to map out the body. It did, however, took some time to get something we liked. It was just difficult to get the perspective right, as usual, due to the cylinder kind of body. It didn't take us long to make something out of the skull element though, but the attempt at a lower jaw failed miserably up until the end of the design. Instead of going for a wide open jaw, a simple closed one worked way better. This also resulted in making the design feel a lot more elegant instead of just looking like a vicious beast. I feel like it does need to have some beauty in it as well, because I think it's cool it's able to draw you in as well, without being scared from the moment you see it. We then moved on to the tip of its tail, where we gave him a blade-like extension. To make this stage feel a bit more different, we added some spikes to his back and made his teeth be a part of the mask instead of being separate. In the end, we did decide to bring back the tongue, simply because it just adds another layer to the design and due to it being a staple for the first 2 stages as well. The final thing we had to work on were its arms. I definitely struggled a lot while working on these, and you don't need anatomy knowledge to see that these don't look the way they would in a real world. I just wasn't able to get the look I wanted whenever I tried to make it fit in the correct spots. This is just when I said screw this and added them to the places where they work best for the silhouette, while ignoring the anatomical mistakes. For the colors, I wanted it to feel a lot more like an experienced Pokemon, hence why we gave him some darker shades of green for its body and for his arms and spikes. We then made sure the gold would still work well with the new palette and moved on to the shading. I wanted to try and level up this part of my drawings and spent quite a lot of time looking at reference in order to make our drawings even crispier than before. The change mostly resulted in using simpler highlights, but a lot more in quantity. Gorgusa, the Gorgon Pokemon. This Pokemon burrows underground, punching the ceiling of the tunnels it digs. It spews out poison from its mouth with such high pressure that it creates geysers of pure acid raining down on any unfortunate soul that walks under it. The wounds caused by this poison can only be healed by the eyes of Vanilluxe. This piece has to be one of my favorite Fakemon I've made yet, although the second stage was bad. I definitely think I saved the second stage though with this third final stage. Gorgusa looks awesome, and it might actually convert me to pick this one over the others of Sinnoh, because those are pretty good as well. Compared to the other final stages of this generation, I think it might not be detailed enough, and it might have benefited from a few more extra elements to his back area. I guess I just find it awesome that it's turned from a little snake, where you don't have a clue where it goes, into an actual arm beast little creature. And that is awesome. It actually turned into a Gorgon at the end. So, happy. Up next are the final stages of Unova, where we have Superior, who has went back to monkey, or in other words, devolved into an armless creature, but has definitely gained a lot more personality. Ember, who is now a fully fledged wrestling beast, which has gained elements like arm fur and big flames around his neck. Lastly, we have Samurott, who went quadrupedal and gained a lot more shelly elements on his design. I especially like the helmet he has now, but the extended whiskers are awesome too. I feel like the second stage looked good, but did not have a lot of Spartan influence. This meant that we would have to fix that with this final stage. Since this line was based off of Minotaurs, we instantly knew what kind of body type to use and settled on a big muscular bipedal one. In order to once again play more into the Sparta feel, someone in my chat suggested to use his tail as an actual spear. This actually looked pretty cool, and it also managed to give gave us the idea to add a shield to his other arm to be a fully fledged warrior. We then put a lot more emphasis on his belly area, where we went for an armored look by adding some metal plates. The legs took me quite a bit of time to figure out, which was mostly due to the lack of research I did on cow feet. After a while we came up with a rugged and slightly bent version that was actually a beautiful finish with the bottom of his body. Our next big focus point was his facial area, where we spent quite a lot of time fighting against the brushy hair on his helmet. It was just really difficult to find the right look for it, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to make it feel more 3D structured or if I wanted to opt into a more hairstyled version. In the end we went with the first option and made sure to extend it up quite high, since this gave the beast a lot more stature. We then moved on to the final details. We added a big cape to his back and made sure it looked good around his neck area too. After that we added in the tail connecting the spear part of it, and the goal for this was to make it look loosely in order to give the spear part some range to be used with. For the colors we went with the same color palette as before, but made some slight adjustments to the red color, which was now a little bit more saturated for a better contrast with the dark colors of the palette. Spartor, the dirty fighter Pokemon. Despite Spartor's tail being able to flow so gently, it can quickly become firm as steel on command to work as a spear to joust and pierce while protecting itself with its right arm shield. Spartor and its pre-evolutions are all very valiant and very caring for each other. Each of them would give up their own life to save another. When standing with its family, Spartor cannot be defeated. I have to say that I just love how Spartor finishes up this line perfectly. I just like the transition of the first two stages into this beast, and it definitely looks the most epic out of these three. I also think the design blends in pretty well with the other final stages of this gen, but I believe we may have had to opt into some red variant of eyes to just match the others more. I was never really a fan of the Unova stars anyways. Sorry guys, my bad. So I guess it isn't that hard of a pick for me. I would definitely go for this one, since it would also be awesome to use a dark starter for once, since we rarely gotten that. Did we get that? I don't know. Educate me please. I created a brush set with all my favorite brushes. I use each of them in every drawing that I make, so if you want to draw in the same style as me, I recommend checking out my website. For only €5.99, you can get the Procreate brush set, which you will be able to use in Procreate. It includes an amazing line art brush, a highlight brush which instantly makes your pieces look a lot better, and many other fantastic brushes. I also want to have a written down version of how to create Paradox Pokemon. That's why I created this step-by-step guide. It's easy to follow, and I added a bunch more tips you can use while drawing. You will also get the work files of the 2 Paradox Pokemon we created, and I added 2 work files with just a line art so you can practice coloring and shading. This guide is also available for €5.99 on my website, but since I thought you guys might be interested in buying it together with the brush set, I made it into a combi deal for only €8.99 for the both of them. And that is a 25% discount, so I know what I would do. It is now time to move on to the final stages of Kalos, where we have Chestnut, who has developed a big shield on his back and has a drastically different color palette. We have Delphox, who builds out the witch team even further by wearing a big furry dress, extending her ear fluffs, and by actually using the wand now. And we have Greninja, who is now rocking a full dark blue body, has one more spike on his head, and he decided that his mouth was too small for his tongue. For this final stage, it didn't take me too long to figure out a direction which I wanted to take. After just a few minutes we came up with the idea of a floating waifu-esque lizard. I know, not really my thing either, but apparently bunnies are part of this group as well, so why not add some extra animals? Once the end goal was clear, we started mapping out the body. In order to make it look more feminine, we made sure to thicken her hips and to pop out her chest a little bit more as well. The next thing we did was to add back the bubbles to her head, but this time we made them quite big as to imitate hair. This made it easy to place the arms, since we put them up as if she's adjusting her hair. We then decided to add the bubbly elements to the bottom of her arms as well, because this would make it look a little bit like a satin dress that has been been woven around her arms. After that, we also added it back onto the tip of her tail, which left us with one more thing to add. I felt like the body would be too similar and quite empty if I didn't add something to break up our belly area. This made me make a small insertion to showcase some of the bubbly energy that lays dormant in her body, ready to be used to heal others. The last thing we worked on were a ton of tiny tweaks to her face that mostly consisted of fixing the perspective issues. It was then just time to work on the colors, where we didn't have to do anything too crazy and stayed really close to the already existing color palette. The only actually noticeable difference is the darker pink for its main body and the addition of an even darker color for her fingers and toes. Amphilia, the nursing Pokemon. The visible liquids in Amphilia's chest are a meter for its healing power. Once the meter is empty, its blue frills and bulb will lose their glow, and it will have to join hands with others of its species to rejuvenate their power together. Amphiolian and Amphilisk enjoy snuggling together when they sleep, that simply being in their presence can soothe even a stampede of Tauros. In the end, I think I could have probably done a bit more for this design, but I also think that the simplicity just works well for this line, since we did add a few extra elements to make it look more interesting. I think it could work in between the other final stages, but it indeed might be needing a few more details to make the design feel a bit more intricate. I am however happy with the end result of this line, and even though it might not fit in perfectly, it's just awesome to see it grow from a little tiny creature into a beautiful healing powerhouse that never loses its happy essence, because that is what this line is about: happy healing. Fantastic. I have to say I love Gorguza, Spartower, Amphilia, but I wonder if you would prefer that